Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July WasteNet meeting. Do we have any apologies? I think not. We have Ian online and the rest of us in attendance, which is excellent. And thank you for those who have driven through on what is a colder than usual morning. And I'll just turn my phone off there. Thank you. So with the agenda today, we'll start off with, on page 1, appointment of a deputy chair. When we first set up the group for this triennium, Ben Bell was appointed as the deputy chair, but has been replaced with Neville, and we haven't gone through and appointed a deputy. I did have a look at it, standing orders, and it's discretionary whether we do have a deputy. With 6 here, do we need to appoint a deputy? Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that we possibly don't need to. We can just formulate one on the day, I feel.
Yeah, so what standing orders say is if we don't have a deputy and I'm not here for any reason, then someone else will fill in at the, as appropriate. Yeah.
You can nominate one on the day.
Yes, yes. So that's fine. So move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is the confirmation of minutes of the meeting of the 10th of June. Is there any comment and feedback on those minutes, please? I do note that the minutes show that Erin Mugan was present at the meeting, and she actually does speak in the minutes on a couple of issues. The reason why I raise it is that when I get to the in-committee part of the agenda, her name is missing. So I'm just wondering which one is correct. Jason?
I think from memory, Erin was online and then may have had to leave. Does that sound about right, Fiona? And that's maybe why she wasn't present for the second part.
Okay, so I had Fran down as being online to start with and then leaving. So both of them, was it? Yeah, okay, thank you. Any other comments and feedback on the minutes? Barry?
Yeah, I had a leave of absence at the Invercargill Council due to my partner passing away and me having a hip operation. So I did watch it online, but I just, for some reason, my apology wasn't put in. So.
Okay, what do we need to do there? I think other than noting. Yeah, thank you. I did have a question over where SDC had got to in terms of recycling, but it comes up later in the agenda and we can deal with it then. So if I can have a mover and a seconder, please, that the minutes are true and correct. That'll be Mia, yeah, well, I was thinking Mia, yeah, Rob, thank you, and Neville. Cheers. All those in favour say aye, against, carried. The next item on the agenda is the strategic plan, execution and activity. And I think nice, tidy reports, particularly where you set out the scope and the activity update, nice and easy to follow. Is there anything there that we need to be picking up in particular, Fiona?
No, we are on track to deliver the plan as scheduled, so there's nothing standing out at this stage apart from what's highlighted in the report.
Yes, Neville. Ian.
Look, it's just on the comments on the WasteNet strategic plan, and it's just alarm bells for me, and I mean
speak to that in the update?
So I guess in terms of organics, that was included in the draft waste strategy that was released by the last government. In the report, it does go through the latest advice that's come out of MFE, and that essentially says that while they are intending to continue with the direction of travel, there hasn't been endorsement of that proposed strategy that was released in 2023. And where they do see alignment with what was included in that proposed strategy, that the intention is most likely to pull back on the timeframes that were originally included in that strategy. So until that covers off the organics, and I guess that's why we've left it in the strategy at the moment, because as it stands, it's still included in that proposed legislation from the government. With regards to the glass out consultation, that was more of a regional project that was included rather than being driven by legislative requirements. So that's why we've included it under the projects banner as opposed to being a legislative requirement. But I guess for the purposes of the plan, they're grouped into one work stream, as it were.
So Ian, I think you can pick up from that like many things with the new government, a rethink is taking place, and it's quite appropriate with these two. I note that the work stream of refreshing Southland's waste management framework, that responses are due in by last week in terms of tender documents. Can you give us an update?
Yes, so we went out to 3 consultancies to request pricing and proposals for that. 2 have opted to submit proposals and 1 has declined to participate. So we're at the moment just going through setting up the tender evaluation panel, and as part of that we'll have an evaluator from ICC, GDC, SDC and then WasteNet to make sure that we're getting views from all of the different councils as part of that evaluation process. So that's due to be completed this week and then hopefully tender awarded in the next fortnight.
For those who are wondering, at the bottom of page 9, the first word, cadence, I thought it was a musical term in terms of the rhythm that you get. So I needed to look that up, and it says how often a regularly scheduled thing happens. So that was the word for the day. The parking lot, Ian spoke to that. In terms of the second page, meeting legislative requirements and projects, made reference to the Southland District Council consultation that was taking place with regard to recycling. Rob, can you give us an update of where you got to?
Still in the progress of it, Keith. So we've just finished up our public consultation on the long-term plan and got the hearings this week from people. So we'll let you know at the next meeting where we land.
Because I see your rates notices are going out, being stepped back. So what sort of feedback did you have on the recycling?
Mixed feedback. A lot of people were tending towards that status quo sort of option, and a few sort of different ideas in terms of bottle banks and those sorts of things too. So not too much, and because we'd put out the option of doing a split collection, so we'd do our normal recycling once a month and the glass recycling once a month, so it's not an additional, so there's a little bit of support for that one as well, but yeah, there was quite a lot for status quo.
So with Invercargill deferring looking at any changes in its recycling until 2027, I guess there's a need for us to, over the next year or so, to be thinking ahead till then. It's extremely difficult, I think, for one council to do it alone, and Invercargill being probably the largest in terms of volume, but Southland being the most spread out. We've got different sets of circumstances. So Ian's got his hand up there, Ian.
Yeah, look, I just want to comment about, I think Rob's got a very valid point, and SDC should take their time and care over this decision, because
Any other? Christine?
Thank you. Just a comment that it's been a valuable exercise, I think, to get the opportunity for our ratepayers to give some feedback, and there was a lot of feedback around that, so we can move on, having received that feedback, with making a decision in the near future.
All righty. Thank you. Any other feedback on the report? So could I have a mover and seconder that we receive the report? Christine, thank you. Rob, seconded. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. The strategic plan document was attached as part of that I omitted, and everything seems to be tracking as it should be, I think, is what we should be noting. Yep. So then we move on to the next item. And so this is the Regional Waste Management and Minimisation Plan. And there's 3 recommendations. 1, we received a report. 2, we confirm any specific considerations, so any changes. And 3, endorse replacement of the current Waste Management and Minimisation Plan, which I guess is the first step in that when reading through the reports, we've got a statutory responsibility to have the plan in place. So really, in terms of the 3rd recommendation, it's really there for noting more than debating. So any feedback and comments, please, in terms of what's in the report, and particularly on page 15, the description of timing, whether there's any feedback on that. Looking at the timing then, it sets out really briefing and planning starting in August, with final plan adoption in July. I guess to Fiona, what role will this group take in the process?
Yeah, so I think the most important role that the group will take is endorsing the proposed pathway of, once we've done the waste assessment, from there we'll be able to present what are the future needs and requirements for the region. And one of the things that I'm keen to flesh out in this project is making sure that the needs are met as to the earlier points. What might be fit for purpose for Invercargill might not be fit for purpose for Southland. So bringing back those conversations to this group to look where we're heading over the next 6 years. So that'll be the main touch point for this group.
The 30 January date there refers to the draft waste assessment presentation to stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders that you're identifying there?
That would be this group, yeah.
I'm wondering whether, in fact, for that meeting, we shouldn't invite or give the opportunity for all councils to come along, or whether we actually have our own meeting and then program another one soon after in February to really give a briefing for those that want to attend from all councils. I think it's also an opportunity to raise other councillors to raise issues. Christine?
Just a question, not in relation to that, which, fine, I think the more exposure the councillors have to what's happening is a good thing. Is it normal practice for councils undertaking this planning process to seek consultants to do it, as opposed to doing it within council resources?
It is quite common practice for external support to be engaged. I guess the program is quite prescriptive in terms of what the legislation requires. So one of the main pieces of work in there is a waste assessment, and that's basically when they collate all of the data around what is the waste stream, where does it come from, what's the different composition, but also forecasting. So what we have proposed for the regional WMMP is a balanced approach, utilising internal resources, but also where we have consultants who specialise in doing those waste assessments and also have that foresight around future demands, service availability and things, is leveraging that external expertise in balance with some of the internal resourcing for things like writing and reviews and stuff like that.
Neville. Oh, Ian.
Thanks, Keith. Look, it's quite hard. I mean, a WMEP is legislatively required, but the thing that irks me is central government obviously make us do this, but they're the ones that are responsible for product stewardship and have the ability to enforce it. And I guess every chance I'll get, I'll mention how they are failing to do their job. Since 2010, I've been on WasteNet, and the dimension of product stewardship was all the go. But 14 years later, we still see packaging of all products creating problems for our waste stream, and it's like we're the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. Again, having to be reactive to something that, if the government had enough strength, would sort out from either the supermarkets, the warehouses, whatever, wherever you buy consumer products. So I don't know what access we have in central government, but they really need to know they're actually failing miserably at delivering. It makes our job very difficult. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Christine.
Just a further follow-up question. I missed the last meeting. I did read the minutes, and you may have discussed this already. But with the request for proposal going out to 3 consultants, how did you choose the 3 consultants? And are they close by, or are we looking at Auckland, or just a bit more about that process?
Yeah, so we've just gone out to, I guess, the commonly used, or like the waste specialist consultancies. There aren't any local ones that have that level of expertise, and also because of the scale of the project, the resourcing available. So that's how we've selected who we've gone out to. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. And that's due in, the responses received, as you're saying already, and then looking at that soon. Thank you.
I do wonder, in terms of the timetable, whether the 3 months allowed from 30 March to 30 June to actually put it out there for consultation, once it's released, I guess it's going to be out there for a month or so for consultation. And are you expecting a report to come to us to give us some guidance on the submissions that come in?
Yes, I think that would be quite appropriate, and hopefully we can. So I guess the intention with this is that we have engagement throughout the process, because it's such a lengthy process, and also because last time the WMMP was reviewed, it was quite abbreviated and the engagement was quite limited. So really trying to front foot that, get the engagement and awareness early. Hopefully we get some engagement from the community, so that even though that last window was quite tight, there's been a conversation leading up to that.
Because at one point it talks about consulting with residents, businesses and councils, but there's also other community groups that are doing a lot of work out there we should be pulling in as well. I guess the other point to note is that it's proposed that Invercargill City Strategy, Policy and Engagement staff will take a lead and coordinating role for this, and that's probably quite appropriate. That then enables you to manage it appropriately. So any other comment or feedback, Rob?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. I'm just kind of supporting on what Christine was talking about in regards to the consultant. I think if we can use as much expertise that we've got in-house, but I understand that there might be a little bit extra, but it was comforting to hear you actually say that you're going to utilise what you've got in-house as well, because paying someone to do what we can do, I'm not that comfortable with, but it sounds like that's under wraps. But in terms of what you just mentioned before with the Invercargill City Council strategy policy leading it, will that be in conjunction with the likes of our council as well, with our sort of community board structure and being able to reach out some of those communities so we can actually tie in that engagement piece too?
Yes, that was the intention, that the ICC would lead, but that there would be involvement from the other two. So I guess what we're trying to achieve there is to make sure that we don't duplicate work streams, but that we share the information. So the same sort of approach I had in mind for the comms teams as well, that they would lead but would share information just to prevent that duplication.
Sounds good, thank you.
Any other feedback or comments? So in terms of the recommendations, we've got to receive the report. I think we've made some comments that can be noted and don't need to be part of any recommendation, and endorse the replacement of the strategy. So looking for a mover and a seconder then to receive the report and endorse replacement of the current document. Thank you, Barry. Moving. Seconder. Thank you, Christine. All those in favour say aye. Against. Carried. The next item on the agenda is the Waste Management Agreement Review process, and again there are 3 recommendations there. 1, receiving the report, 2, confirming the preferred approach, and 3, endorsing the timelines. And what are the timelines applying to this? On the last page.
Yeah, on the last page there. So we had it scheduled in our strategic plan to occur from August to October this year.
Right. Okay. So in terms of the report, any feedback and comments, please, Rob?
Thanks, Keith. Just a question for the need for an independent person to kind of lead it when we've got a very capable person sitting on your left that might be able to do it.
Yes, I think that's a good discussion point. My thought in engaging an independent person was just to have that impartiality to make sure all parties were comfortable with the outcome, but happy to have some feedback on that.
Yeah, well, my view is that we could potentially do that with, if Fiona was happy to do it, of course, but I think we could potentially do this one in-house. That's my view.
So do you have the skill set and time to do this?
Yes, I believe I do, yes.
Right. And I think it's also the benefit that flows from that is that it's then setting up a framework that I guess you're comfortable with as well. So if that's the case, anything, yeah. Sorry, Ian?
Yeah, look, someone's asked about the elected member being involved, but I'd like to ask why the Mayor and Chief Executive? Now, wouldn't you invest in people who actually are more up-to-date detail involved? It seems to me illogical that you have this meeting and it just purely maybe advised to a certain point, but we all know working in this committee there's a lot more detail involved, that when you are looking to the future, it's good to know a bit of the history. So I would dispute that these face-to-face interviews with key stakeholders involve the Mayor and Chief Executive.
The next bullet point, though, also refers to elected members who are involved with WasteNet. So I think
I'm an elected member. An elected member, that says.
right. Yes.
Yeah, I still struggle with the Mayor and Chief Executive. I really do.
Well, I guess it's looking at the oversight from a strategic point of view. Probably the most useful input will come from those such as yourself who actually have knowledge and understanding. So if we look at that second bullet point, really each of us around the table should be spending time with Fiona on that process. Christine?
And just in relation to Ian's point, I'd be concerned if the second bullet point wasn't there. But I think with the first, it adds strength to the whole process. Thank you.
Jason?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. I guess it could be changed to the elected members,
Yes.
so that it captures both. So that would be useful, I think. And just from a staff perspective, we certainly support Fiona taking on that role, and I think she's done a fantastic job of creating that independence since she's been in the role, so we wouldn't see any conflict there from a GDC perspective.
No, we'd support that from SDC as well.
Yes, so we'll change that second bullet point to the elected members then, and also note that number 2 on that list refers to a session with the individual councils as well. So I think, Ian, that it does cover all the bases, and from, I guess, a strategic point of view, there is benefit in at least having some talkies with the chief executives and mayors, although they're probably not going to give as much response in terms of their knowledge has come from the elected members. With apologies to a mayor who's present, yes. but if you, those of us who are directly involved have a better understanding. Yes, you're the exception to the case. Can I just change feet for one moment? Yes, Ian. Well, I think the framework we've got in front of us is going to be comprehensive and covers everyone.
It's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pleased.
Yeah. All right. Any other feedback or comments in terms of the report, please, Christine?
So just in relation to the proposed joint agreement review process, we're just changing that heading there to that conducted by Fiona as opposed to an independent third party. So how do we include that in the recommendation?
In terms of the recommendation, then the first one will be to receive the report. The second, confirm the preferred approach, noting that the second bullet point will be amended to refer to the elected members directly involved with WasteNet. And the third recommendation in terms of endorsing the timelines that Fiona referred to in the third quarter of this year.
And the fourth one will be, instead of being undertaken by an independent third party, it's undertaken by Fiona.
So the fourth one, yes, be using Fiona as the person to undertake the work. So are you moving those 4 then? Thank you, Christine. If I can have a seconder. Neville.
Just before I second this, then I've got a bit of a concern then if we're doing a review and we're going to have the elected members, that means we can have anybody from the thing. Should we not just have one person from each council?
Well, we're talking about the elected members directly involved with WasteNet being interviewed.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Just
Yeah. So you're seconding and then, right. Any other discussion? None. All those in favour say aye.
aye.
Against? Carried. We then move on to the WasteNet Education and Communication Activity update. Any comments and feedback, please? I see in the background, this is the one that refers to schools, residential and businesses. I think the delivery also needs to include other community groups, particularly those who are providing services and in a very useful way. It's also pleasing to note the A to Z item search database is now live. Wasn't intending to have a look at it last night, but didn't get there. So any other feedback and comments, please? Ian?
Thanks, Chair. Look, I guess education, I'd imagine that bin inspections, this is from the Invercargill point of view, for the recycling bin. Are we anywhere near something, Fiona? Obviously, again, 14 years on WasteNet, and this has always been a tricky one. Is it actually doable, bin inspections?
Yes, so we've received a quote from WasteCo to resource those bin inspections, and just working through the details before we bring a recommendation to this group. Essentially, we'd be looking at it as a data collection exercise in the first instance while we work alongside getting the bylaw and working around that communication with the community around them understanding what the process is, eventually what the implications will be. But we have taken a big step forward getting that quote from WasteCo, so I hope to have a paper for you at the next WAG.
Thanks for that. Hopefully, it shouldn't be as complicated as our parking bylaw.
Agreed. Yes. Any other feedback? Plastic-free July. So Ellie Green will be doing a workshop here at Council on the 24th of July. At what time is it, Fiona?
6 till 7 p.m.
6 p.m. Right. Certainly myself and maybe Neville will come along to that. The item of love food, hate waste, I thought was an interesting one. So it's been driven by central government. Is there anything that we can do here to help us along?
Yeah, so that's one that's supported quite widely by all of the councils. Essentially, they pay a subscription fee to this, and then Love Food Hate Waste generates information and campaign material. Over the past couple of years, we haven't leveraged that as much as we potentially could have, even though we've paid the subscription fee. So what we've got underway now is all of the information's been circulated to each individual comms team from the different councils so that they can just post that material. So we should start to see some return on that subscription, and that's all underway with the different comms teams.
Rob?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Just in terms of that, we had a presentation at our last council meeting from, and forgive me if I get this name wrong, Kiwi Harvest, yeah, who are going around collecting and preventing a whole lot of food waste going into landfill. And I think, and I could have this number wrong again, but I think it was about 20,000. Was it 20,000 tonnes of milk?
I can't recall it.
Yeah, it was a substantial amount. So yeah, it was really interesting, and I'm just wondering, yeah, this is a rhetorical question, but just wondering at this stage what we can do in terms of WasteNet and that waste minimisation piece that comes out of that good work that they're doing, and because they're doing it sort of all around Southland and covering quite a big area, but yeah, having quite a substantial impact, and it matches up with what you're just talking about as well.
Yeah, Grant?
Yeah, after that meeting, Rob, I contacted Fiona and that lady to touch base. So I believe they have, and sort of working out perhaps what they may or may not be able to do.
So what happens to the waste that's collected?
It gets distributed to those in need, so it actually goes to, yeah, it's a really, really good service that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Including the rural area as well. I can't remember about that.
Right.
But it costs them $165,000 a year to run at the moment. That's been funded through Auckland, so that's the risk they perceive and looking to see if anything can be sourced locally.
Mm-hmm. Grant?
And one of the issues I think that they were there is basically they probably need some sort of support, funding or whatever to continue in Southland. That's was pretty much a message I got from that report.
And yes, there's a number of different organisations that are doing extremely good work, and I think as part of our moving forward, we need to be looking at the benefits and the costs and the approach that we should be using. I guess as part of the data that you're pulling together, Fiona, the different groups that we've got out there of recording where they are, what they're doing, is that something you're looking at?
So that will, it's forming part of the organic study that we're doing at the moment, and it will also form part of the waste assessment that we'll do as part of the WMMP. But I'm quite conscious that there is a requirement for this group to have transparency around some of the key parts, so like the likes of Pakeke Lions, Kiwi Harvest, and also how they interact with our funding. So whether that's through the annual grant that we have, and is the criteria right to be able to suitably support those kind of organisations. The conversation I had with Kiwi Harvest was that we've got a community grant, but it can't fund BAU operations. So did they have a specific project or something that we could look to fund? But that might be a discussion to come back to the group, as are the criteria right for how we use that fund?
Rob?
It's just interesting when you look at, and it's quite hard to actually quantify the exact savings, but when they are actually saving the costs of going to landfill, so there is a direct kind of link in there between the two.
Grant?
Fiona, will they come to this organisation for funding and for a special fund? Is that something they could or couldn't do?
That's the next step.
Yeah.
I think we need to have a good understanding and look at cost benefit of that. And yes, Christine.
Ian's got his hand up.
Oh, Ian.
Thanks, Chair. This is a question for Fiona. Commercial composting operators, will they be subject to ETS levies? Because obviously if you've got large composting facilities, the amount of methane they'll be producing will be extensive. So as landfills have to pay ETS, will these facilities have to pay ETS?
I'm not aware of any requirements at the present moment, but I can confirm that. I'll go away and double check.
But if you're talking on a large scale and diverting this green matter or food matter from landfill, they would have had to pay ETS if it went there. It would only seem fair that these places would have to pay that. It just makes sense.
Yeah, the regulations don't necessarily follow common sense all the time, Ian, but it's a good point and something that we need to check on.
Yeah, well, it's almost like when things like this happen, and you sit around the campfire singing Kumbaya, then I think you might as well just shut the door and go home. Yeah.
Right. Any other?
That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Any other feedback in terms of the report? And I note that the organics feasibility study will have a report coming through to us in September. So if I can have a move and a seconder, please, that the group receives the report, WasteNet Education and Communications Activity Update. Thank you, Rob. Second. Thank you, Neville. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. which brings us to the end of the open agenda. So I'll move that the public be excluded from the following parts of proceedings, namely to have the minutes of the meeting of the Monday the 10th of June confirmed, and secondly to receive a report on emissions trading scheme and AB Lime unique emissions factor overview. If I can have a seconder for that, please. Christine, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. And we'll just wait for turned off.